You're listening to Salt and Light Radio on the Catholic Channel, Sirius 159 and XM 117.
At the same time that Americans were focusing on the events at the Columbine High School in Colorado in 1999, Canada was quietly having its own Columbine incident in Taber, Alberta. 17-year-old Jason Lang was shot dead by a 14-year-old boy who opened fire inside the W.R. Myers High School. Since then, Jason's father, Reverend Dale Lang, has devoted much of his time traveling the country to talk about this tragedy and how they've dealt with it. Reverend Lang joins us now on the phone. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming onto the program. Can you take us back to the moment when you heard that there had been a shooting at your son's school?
Yeah, we really didn't hear that there was a shooting at our son's school. We got a phone call at our home to tell us that our son was in the emergency unit and that it was a very serious circumstance. We didn't know what it was. So we immediately rushed to the hospital, and upon arriving at the hospital at the emergency unit, we were told that he had been shot, which of course was unbelievably shocking news to us at that point in time.
Right.
And then we asked, where he was, not expecting to hear that he had been shot in our little quiet small-town school. But the answer came back, yeah, he was shot at school. Okay,
so as you found out that who the shooter had been, what sort of feelings were rising up inside of you?
Well, even before I knew the name of the shooter in the hospital, after we were, at the time we got to the hospital, they were still trying to save Jason's life. So we had to wait a while, and then when they came out and told us that he had not made it, and after having spent some time in that room with his body, I came out of the room and got very angry,
yes.
Just walking back and forth. I didn't know the name of the shooter. And my anger wasn't directed at him necessarily, nor at God, just that my son was gone, which was so unjust and so wrong.
Yeah.
So I didn't direct my anger at him, but I did have anger at that time. Thankfully, God's grace was more than sufficient to take me out of that place, and I actually never went back to feeling angry again.
Now, it's normal, of course, to feel the anger and even hatred or to want justice or even some people, I guess, to want revenge.
Sure.
But you just mentioned the word grace.
Right.
And now I think that intellectually, because of who you are, you would have been able to quite easily say, well, I'm called to forgive. But where does grace fall into? Because one thing is to know that we're called to forgive, and the other thing is to actually feel, to let go.
Yeah, you don't in terrible moments of great pain, you don't sit down and say, well, how should I respond?
Yes.
It becomes a reaction out of who you are as a person, out of your heart, and for me, that reaction, because I had been a Christian for, at that time, 20-some-odd years,
mm-hmm.
I was able to, I think, by God's grace again, respond not out of anger, but out of compassion.
Now, not only did you respond out of compassion, but you became a bit of a leader in I guess, leading the whole school community, particularly in terms of that response. And you spent a great deal of the last 10 years taking this message across the country. Now, why, at the expense of being obvious, but why is it? It's an important message, but why is it so important that you spend so much time letting people know?
Well, I didn't. I never chose that. People started phoning within days of my son's death, asking me to come and speak, because we had begun to talk, I think, with God's compassion, and also we, of course, forgave the boy who killed our son.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never sought to speak anywhere, and this is all. As it began to happen, I really believed it would be a very short time frame that I would go out and speak a few times, and then once we were no longer news, that would fade away. But
right.
Here we are 10 years later, and I'm still being asked to speak. And I guess the only answer I have is that the issue is critical. It's an issue we all struggle with. How to deal with the hurts of life, and how do we deal with getting wounded by other people? It is a critical issue that we all face on a virtually daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So the significance of the issue seems to keep on bringing me to places to speak, and that's what keeps happening at this point in time.
Yeah. Now, just a note for anyone that might be joining the program at this time, you're listening to Salt and Light Radio. I'm Pedro Guevara Man, and we're speaking to Reverend Dale Lang, whose son was shot dead at a school shooting incident in Tabor, Alberta in 1999. Now, is that why you became involved in the restorative justice movement? I guess it sort of happened afterwards, right?
Well, one of the groups that has asked me on a number of occasions to come and speak is Restorative Justice. And, of course, the reason for that is because Restorative Justice really is all about the idea of rescuing or seeing people who have offended to come into a healthier place in their own lives, to be healed so that they don't keep on offending and hurting other people.
Right.
And so my story fits obviously right into that sort of thinking.
Now, for people that might be hearing that term for the first time, restorative justice, so you've explained it in terms of the offender so that they can come to wholeness, and sometimes our criminal justice system doesn't put that at the top of the list, but doesn't it also have to do with the people, the victims and the victims' families to also come in to be able to reach wholeness?
Sure. Yeah, there's a whole understanding of bringing victims and perpetrators together when possible and working through feelings and circumstances, hopefully to bring healing to everybody involved. There's no question that that's also a part of the equation for the restorative justice model, to see everybody involved come to a place of peace and
maybe if you can leave us with some advice. There might be some of our listeners who are struggling because they've been hurt or they've been victimized or they've lost a loved one, and they're struggling with what, at least if they're, the Christian belief tells them that they should forgive, and they're not able to come to that. What maybe not advice, but what words do you have for them?
Yeah, you're right. I don't tell people how to feel or what to do. I can only share with them that when I was able to, by God's grace, choose to forgive the boy who killed our son, I began to understand after a while that it was a place of new freedom for me. Mm-hmm. That once I let go of anger and I let the walls come down, because generally when we're hurt, we build walls to prevent people from hurting us more. When we do that, then the Lord promises to come in and begin the process of healing us that will bring us to a place of freedom. Forgiving is not easy. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes it's a process that takes a while. But my definition of forgiveness is very simple. When you can think about or look at a person who's hurt you deeply and still feel peace inside yourself, mm-hmm. you've probably arrived at the place of forgiveness and you've been set free.
Yeah, Dale, thank you so much for speaking to us today, and thank you for your courage and your leadership in this with this important message.
Well, thank you for calling me, and have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
It's been proven that the best way to bring healing after a crime is the path of restoration. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this and how it's being incorporated into our criminal justice system, you can attend the Restorative Justice Conference that is taking place November 20th and 21st at the Trinity St. Paul's United Church in Toronto. For more information, you can visit the Friends of Dismas website. That's Dismas, the good thief, the Friends of Dismas, at www.friendsofdismas.ca. Click on the Restorative Justice Conference link. And we'll also have that link off our own website as well. Reverend Dale Lang will be the keynote speaker on November 20th in the evening and again on Saturday afternoon. The other keynote speaker on November 21st is Arthur Lockhart. He's the founder of the Gatehouse, a community-based home assisting people victimized by child sexual abuse. We've been speaking with Reverend Dale Lang, whose son Jason was killed in a school shooting in Tabor, Alberta in 1999. We've been talking about restorative justice.